No, I'm excited to get started. Obviously, it's been a long off season, longer than we'd hoped it would have been, but nonetheless, that's all behind us, and I think our guys share that excitement and looking forward to seeing how it all starts to come together. So, we needed 2 good days of preparation and focus, but I'm excited to see how they put it all together.
Where do you see the most growth after fall camp here and everything?
Honestly, I mean, a lot of people point to intangible things. I think we've gotten better as a team. We pass it better, we cut better, we talk more, and I could see the guys are just getting comfortable that that's a part of winning. And it's not an easy thing to attain, especially early, and it still remains to be seen how that translates to when there's people in the building and officials out there, and so, but I'm excited to see the growth that we've made from practice 1 to whatever it is, 26 today, in terms of our ability to execute those small details.
Is that the only unknown for you? Do you have a pretty good feel for where you guys are otherwise?
We're relatively healthy. Again, the benefit I feel like we have is that we really only have one guy who's never done this. We've got some guys who haven't done it here, but they're all pretty experienced at this deal, and so that gives you some comfort that you won't have a bunch of wide-eyed guys out there on the court. If I don't even want to talk about them going on a 6-0 run, but if things, which is part of the game, right? Every team makes a run at some point, that you feel comfortable that an experienced group will be able to figure out how to fix things a little bit better.
Are you ready to share a lineup, or is that a game time thing?
I mean, I don't know. I try not to do that just because today's practice is really important. But we've practiced with a group that we think is going to start in John Michael, Avery, Bryce Thompson, Caleb, and Musa, and that's kind of been the way we've trended for about 2.5, 3 weeks now. So the better part of our practice season so far. But again, they all need to practice well today and tomorrow, and give me confidence that they're ready to go into the lights, which I think they all will be. And if that's the case, that's who we'll roll out there first.
You mentioned you're relatively healthy now. With only 11 scholarship guys, do you take any extra precautions this year trying to remain that way?
I mean, that's kind of trying to control the uncontrollable in many ways. Now, we're not going to do things that we know expose us in a different way to injury or unnecessary roughness in practice. I don't know, is that a real term anymore? But so I don't necessarily plan practices with injuries in mind. I'm thankful we got a good training staff led by Kevin Blasky, who communicates well what's going on with our guys, and that's kind of how I've always approached it.
Last week he was wearing goggles of some sort. Is he just doing that, or is
Yeah, no, he got poked in the eye actually twice in one practice, and those things happen. So again, it's why you can't really. How do you plan for somebody getting poked in the eye?
Mm-hmm.
Or even rolling an ankle? They say, "Oh, it killed." I mean, none of it you really can predict, and so how do you plan or prepare for it not to happen? I guess it's kind of my point. I just try to plan a practice that I think we can get better from, depending on what we need at the given time, and go out there and try to execute that.
It seems like something he'd just show up in one day. So
It's not out of the realm. I mean, he could show up in a curly afro tomorrow, for all I know.
You talked about Caleb and Musa being together some early this fall. How has that gone? And kind of you mentioned they might be in the starting lineup together. What do you like about that?
First it gives you a really strong head start on the defensive end, interior wise. I mean, I think that's obvious. You got the 2 best shot blockers in the best defensive conference in the country. So it gives you, the question is offensively, what are they, how do they kind of stay out of each other's way, sort of. But I think they really need to figure out how to help each other as much as staying out of each other's way. And they can because Musa's gotten so much better offensively is the biggest key in that, and KV's gotten more comfortable playing as a perimeter player, playmaking sense, but as a cutter and as somebody who can, flash to the high post and throw a high-low pass. Those are things that we'll look to try to see how well we can execute again for the first time under lights with people in the stands, because so far in practice, there's some good returns on it.
Last year you put Tyreek and Musa in the starting lineup because Tyreek could pick up the guard in the pick and roll. Did Caleb get any better at that this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's still not as natural to him as it is to Tyreek. They just built different, and so you're going to see Tyreek play alongside. I don't foresee a lineup where all three of them are out there, but I do see two of them being out there very often, and so that means Tyreek will play with both of them at some point, and so having some of that experience from last year will certainly carry over for him.
I assume Musa, anytime Musa's on the floor, he's going to be the 5. Is it going to be difficult for Caleb to go from power forward to center, Is that going to be somewhat natural to him?
Well, that's one of those things we'll see. I don't know, and I don't want to pretend like I know how he's going to respond when it's real, right? But I've been pleased with the progress he's made there, and we really started working at this thing since I knew they were all coming back, and obviously that was something we worked on this spring and summer and then into the fall, and have had a lot of conversations about how it works. And I'm not shy about saying it. I feel like the three of them give us, maybe the best grouping of 4 or 5 men out there. I mean, everybody in our league certainly has one of them, and most teams have 2, but I don't know how many have 3 really capable defensive present, and they all score differently, but guys that are capable of really kind of being a dominant figure inside the lane. And so I think as good as, we hope our guards are going to be on a lot of nights, those guys could be the difference in our games.
Have you seen some improvement from Tyreek offensively too? You mentioned scores a different way. Have you seen?
Yeah. Him and Caleb, more than Musa. And Musa, if he was sitting here, we'd tell you maybe different. They all have become better shooters. Tyreek's comfortable shooting from 3. But the thing I told them all is, because of my last statement, because I think they can be a dominant threesome inside, I need them to be a dominant threesome inside and really leave the lion's share of the 3-point shooting to John Michael and Avery and BT and Asbury. And if we can find a balance on that, then we got a chance to be a really good team. And so I never want to see a line where between the 3 of them, we've got 11 3-point attempts and 7 rebounds. I mean, that can't happen. We need to have games where those guys have 18 to 24, 25 rebounds between the 3 of them, and if they all take a 3 or one of them takes 2 threes, I'll live with that. But we got to dominate inside first.
Among that starting group of guards, who would you say is your best on-ball defender? You obviously lost Ice last year.
Yeah, so Avery's probably our best on-ball defender. Avery might have been our best on-ball defender last year. He just wasn't as complete of a defender as Ice was. I couldn't put him on Emmanuel Miller or Eddie Lampkin's probably a stretch, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't guard. Ice could guard 5 men.
Yeah.
And you probably see him do it in the Big Ten because there's 5 men. There's 2 5 men on every court in the league. But Avery's always been really good in terms of being on the ball. The thing with Avery, he's got to take less risks on defense, which sometimes take him out of position and gets him in foul trouble. And I think having a guy like John Michael who's as good in terms of moving his feet to sometimes not have to guard the dominant ball handling playmaker type guy gives him it's kind of a sense of security.
What do you think of Cade's stretch?
I mean, I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm really not. I mean, I remember talking about this maybe when we were coaching him. I mean, I think the kid's going to be a perennial all-star in the NBA. And, last year's start, because he finished really strong, had a lot to do with him, missing training camp and getting used to the NBA for the first time and, learning that. But I've never seen a kid as determined to improve as I have him. And like the intentionality he goes about his off seasons is really uncanny for a guy his age. And so that he's having this kind of start to a second year, knowing all the guys, not being in awe that Giannis is across from him or LeBron. I mean, it's different for a 19-year-old kid doing that versus, you know, a guy who's done it now a few times. And I'm sure there's still moments where, you know, he's like, man, I'm really living out my dream, but it's kind of becoming more accustomed to just being his job. So I'm certainly proud of him, and hope they can win a few more games, because I know one thing he hates to do is lose.
Have you been to any of his games up there?
I haven't been up to Detroit yet, but I think, you know, the schedule is going to work out where we're going to be up there the day they play Boston, which will, you know, be a kind of a treat for our guys if we're able to work it out to go see him and Marcus battle it out.
How'd you end up courtside in OKC the other night?
I mean, there are a few people who think that I'm okay to sit with during the game, and so someone thought it, you know, might be something I was interested in. So we got down there. I took a couple of guys on the staff, and then, you know, it was a cool day. I enjoyed watching them play. They got a young team. I mean, they got a bunch of. I feel like my team's older than theirs, and it may be. But now they're a fun bunch to watch. They compete hard, but they got a bunch of guys out there that are looking around like, man, that's Paul George. He used to play here. I used to cheer for him.
Mike, Thursday night, coaching against someone that you're familiar with. Where does that relationship start, and you know, how is the relationship?
Yeah, and I probably was remiss in not mentioning. I mean, you know, we are playing against someone else in our building. Certainly not a Big 12 opponent, but a team with a coach I have tremendous respect for. I worked with Coach Nutt for a year, my second full-time assistant coaching year at Coastal Carolina. Coach came in to replace a guy named Ed Conroy, who had went to the Citadel and worked with us. Ed's got some ties because he worked with Buzz here at Tulsa. And so we were both working for Buzz Peterson down at Coastal Carolina, and got a chance to know him. One of the unique things about the Nuts family, Dennis played at TCU, was a really good basketball player. He's got a brother named Danny who also played basketball, but his two other brothers, Dickie and Houston, both played football here. And Houston obviously was the coach at Arkansas and Ole Miss, and you know, so forth. And Dickie was a really good basketball player, and then he's now an assistant coach at Missouri, I believe, with Coach Gates. So they've got some strong ties to Oklahoma State and the Cowboy Athletics family too.
I know it's not anything you're not familiar with, but what is it like going up against somebody that, you know, you were in the trenches with?
Yeah, I mean, I usually don't love playing against friends. I've gotten to know a lot of other coaches, and so it's relatively unavoidable at this point. But I do like playing against people who I respect, and we certainly know that we're going to try to help make each other better. It's an opportunity for his guys to experience something like this, playing in GIA, which is still a historic place to play basketball, and for our guys to get better in our preparation to achieve some of the goals that we've set for ourselves. And so I'm looking forward to it. I know he's going to have a team that's tough and prepared, and they're going to try to play fast, and you know, I'm sure they're going to do some unique things because they don't have the type of size that we'll be able to put out there. But I'm certainly he'll have his team prepared to try to battle with us as hard as they can.